Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to, well, plunge right into those big topics, reshaping things, cutting through the noise for the real insights. And today, we are taking a deep dive into something, maybe it sounds a bit niche, a bit financial, but it's actually right at the heart of this huge economic shift. We're talking about the global carbon market. Our mission really is to unpack the frankly remarkable growth that's projected for this market. We've got some deep data here from cognitive market research. We're talking figures, trends, stuff that's really set to change how businesses run, how economies work globally. Think of this as your shortcut to getting your head around a pretty complex and fast-moving financial world. But before we hit the really big numbers, maybe let's just quickly clarify, what exactly is this global carbon market for someone trying to get the basic idea?
Yeah, good place to start. So at its core, you can think of it as a system, right? Where carbon emissions, greenhouse gases, get a financial value put on them. Basically, it lets companies buy and sell, well, call them allowances or credits. These represent the right to emit a certain amount.
Okay, so it's about trading the right to pollute, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. The goal is to incentivize companies to cut back their emissions because, well, polluting starts to cost real money. And on the flip side, reducing emissions can actually become profitable. It's a key way to put a price on carbon.
Right, pushing investment towards cleaner tech, cleaner ways of doing things.
Exactly. That's the fundamental purpose.
Got it. Thanks. So keep that framework in mind because you're about to see just how massive these markets are becoming. Okay, let's unpack this.
All right, so let's start with the big picture, the global scale. Back in 2021, the market size in terms of sales revenue was already over $190 billion.
190 billion. Okay, but hold on to that number because that's just the starting line.
Yeah.
The projections for just the near future, they skyrocket. We're talking an expected jump to over $634 billion by 2025.
Yeah, more than tripling in just 4 years.
It's wild. But then the really astonishing one, the longer-term projection. This market is forecast to hit almost $7 trillion by 2033.
$7 trillion. It's almost hard to conceptualize.
I know. To put that in perspective, I mean, a market that big, it's roughly like the GDP of a major economy like France or maybe India. It's just immense.
It is. And what's fascinating here, what's driving that leap, is the compound annual growth rate. The CAGR. To get from 190 billion to nearly 7 trillion implies a global CAGR of around 35%.
35%?
Yeah, just think about that. It means, on average, the market is growing by more than a third every single year.
Wow.
This isn't just, steady growth. It's a fundamental, incredibly rapid shift. It really signals how fast climate action is being, financialized.
Okay, so that's the astonishing big picture. Now let's zoom in a bit because this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Where is all this growth actually happening? Around the world, seeing that huge global number, are there regional patterns that jump out? Maybe a surprise leader or somewhere growing unexpectedly fast?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the growth is widespread, definitely, but some regions are really, really pushing this forward. Let's start with North America. So the region clocked in over $42 billion in revenue back in 2021.
Okay.
Projected to grow to over 1.5 trillion by 2033.
1.5 trillion.
Yeah, driven by a CGR, again, very high, nearly 35%.
And within North America, I guess the U.S. is the biggest piece of that pie, volume-wise. Looks like it's heading towards, what, over 1.1 trillion by 2033?
That's right. The U.S. leads in sheer size. But, what really catches the eye is Canada.
Ah, okay. How so?
Well, Canada's showing really exceptional performance. Its market was just over 5.6 billion in 2021, but it's projected to hit nearly 240 billion by 2033.
Wow, that's a huge jump from a smaller base.
Exactly. And it's powered by the highest KGR in the whole region, over 36.6%.
Higher than the U.S.
Yeah. That kind of acceleration suggests maybe some particularly effective policies or, market designs are really clicking up there, maybe even outpacing bigger economies in terms of growth rate.
Interesting. And Mexico looks pretty strong, too, consistent growth.
Yep, Mexico's showing consistent growth, around 33, almost 34% CAGR, very much part of that strong regional trend.
Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe, often seen as maybe the pioneer here, still showing that dynamism.
Definitely. Europe's market grew from over 51 billion in 2021, and it's expected to hit over 1.8 trillion by 2033. Again, a really strong CAGR, nearly 35%, 34.87 to be precise.
And the big players there, Germany, UK.
Yeah, key players. Germany and the UK are both projected to grow into the hundreds of billions by 2033. Key GRs both over 35%. But Spain, interestingly, stands out even more. It actually has the highest GGR in Europe, hitting 36%.
36. So higher than Germany and the UK's rate.
Slightly higher, yeah. It suggests that, strong national commitments are really translating into big market expansion right across the continent.
And others like France, Italy, also strong.
Very strong. France heading towards 268 billion, Italy towards 230 billion by 2033. Russia, Sweden, Denmark also showing robust growth, sort of mid to high 30s key IGRs. It reinforces that deep commitment in Europe. The rest of Europe trails a bit, but still a healthy 28% CIGR.
Okay, now Asia Pacific. This looks like it's set to become just a massive force. Over 61 billion in 2021, but surging to, this is right, over 2.3 trillion by 2033.
Jaw-dropping is the word the source used. And
Yeah.
2.38 trillion. The key AGR there is over 35.6%. Huge.
And China's leading the way.
China's definitely the biggest player in the region, volume-wise, set to reach over 710 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of 36.36%. Very strong.
Boy, India. It says here, India is following incredibly closely, but with an even higher CAGR.
That's right. India's key AGR is projected at 36.38%, just fractionally higher than China's rate. It's rising from about 13 billion in 2021 to nearly 550 billion by 2033.
Wow. That pace in India is, well, it suggests something really interesting is happening there. Maybe that interplay between, rapid development and growing climate commitments.
It certainly suggests that. It's a fascinating dynamic. And you've also got Australia with a strong CAGR, over 35%, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Southeast Asia, all showing really robust growth, too, generally in the sort of 32-33% CAGR range.
Okay, let's head down to South America. Started at, just over 18 billion in 2021?
Yeah, 18.14 billion.
And projected to grow to over 678 billion by 2033. Another really high CAGR, over 35%.
That's it, 35.2%. And Brazil is a huge part of that story, naturally, going from nearly 7.8 billion up to almost 288 billion by 2033, a massive increase.
And it looks like Argentina and Colombia aren't far behind in terms of growth rate.
No, interestingly, they have similar high growth rates, around 35.8% CAGR. It really indicates a broad regional buy-in to these carbon markets.
Right, and Peru, Chile, the rest of the region also showing stable high growth. CGR is above 34%.
Exactly. Pretty much across the board, strong, consistent growth predicted for South America.
Okay, two more regions. The Middle East, also seeing significant growth, started around 11 billion in 2021, and then rising sharply to nearly 420 billion by 2033.
Yep, 419.8 billion, another strong trajectory. Saudi Arabia is leading the pack there. CAGR over 35.5%, followed very closely by Turkey and the UAE, both showing really consistent growth rates, also around 35.5%.
So even in economies we think of as heavily reliant on fossil fuels, there's major movement here.
Absolutely. The entire region, including Egypt, Qatar, the rest of the Middle East, it's showing solid, consistent growth. It underscores this growing awareness, growing investment in carbon markets pretty much everywhere.
All right, last but not least, let's look at Africa. Now, the starting point is smaller, right? Just over 6 billion in 2021.
That's right, 6.3 billion, expected to rise to about 18 billion by 2025, and then up to nearly 140 billion by 2033.
Okay, so nearly 140 billion. Now, that reflects a key EGR that's a bit lower than some other regions, looks like around 28, 29%.
Yeah, 28.9% is the figure. It's slightly lower, that's true.
But it still represents a pretty substantial long-term opportunity, doesn't it? Going from 6 billion to 140 billion.
It absolutely does. I think what's important to remember about Africa is even with that slightly lower CAGR, growth of that magnitude transforms what was a nascent market into a really significant one by 2033. It signals that even regions starting from a smaller base are definitely catching this wave. Often it's driven by things like international partnerships, increasing domestic policy focus.
Right. And within Africa, Nigeria seems to be showing particularly strong projected growth, from under 3 billion to over 60 billion.
Yeah, Nigeria's growth looks significant. South Africa is also a key player, starting smaller but growing steadily. And the rest of Africa combined, starting around 1 billion in 2021, is projected to grow to over 22 billion by 2033. So yeah, a substantial emerging market overall.
Okay, wow. So what does this all mean? We've just walked through some truly mind-bending numbers unfolding right across the globe. From North America's really aggressive adoption, Asia Pacific's just sheer scale. Europe's continued strength, and even, South America, the Middle East, Africa, showing this huge potential. What's the engine behind this universal multi-trillion-dollar shift?
Well, if we try and connect the dots, connect it back to the bigger picture,
Hmm.
it really seems to boil down to a few undeniable forces. You've got accelerating regulatory momentum, government stepping up. You've got evolving climate policy becoming more concrete, and just massive, massive investment pouring into sustainable initiatives.
Right.
These things together, they're fundamentally reshaping economies on a global scale.
So it's changing how companies have to think.
Totally. Think about how it redefines risk, redefines opportunity for businesses. Carbon isn't just some externality anymore that you don't account for. It's becoming a real financial commodity. It impacts balance sheets. It impacts investment decisions. So this isn't just some niche market on the side. It's a very clear reflection of this profound and frankly very rapid shift towards a low carbon economy. It's becoming about competitive advantage, about attracting capital in a world that's increasingly focused on sustainability.
Exactly. And I think the exciting conclusion, reading through the source material, is that this shift isn't just about, environmental box ticking. It's actually transforming entire markets. And in doing so, it's creating these unprecedented opportunities for innovation, for revenue generation.
That's a key point.
It's this dynamic space where, economic growth and environmental goals seem to be getting more and more intertwined. It shows that tackling climate change can actually be a powerful economic driver. So we've seen today just how the global carbon market is set for truly exponential growth. Pretty much everywhere we look, North America, Asia Pacific, Europe, Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, it's happening. This isn't just some economic trend. It feels more like a financial revolution, heading towards that multi-trillion-dollar scale by 2033. The sheer size of this change is, well, it's just incredible.
It really is. And, this raises an important question, I think. If this huge shift towards a low-carbon economy is creating such vast financial opportunities, how will these powerful market forces influence not just what companies do, but maybe geopolitical strategies, too, and international cooperation on climate action in the coming decades?
Yeah, that's a big question. It definitely leaves you thinking, doesn't it? How this financial revolution might ripple out and impact, well, your own lives, the industries maybe you work in, and ultimately the future direction of our planet. It's a powerful reminder, I suppose, that these big global shifts, they often create the most fertile ground for new opportunities. And this market is certainly one to watch very, very closely.
Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to sift through the noise, find the surprising insights, and really give you the fast track to understanding what's going on. Today, we're taking a close look at, well, a really vital and fast-moving industry, the global carbon materials market. Now, you probably hear carbon and, instantly think climate change, but what's really fascinating, maybe a bit paradoxical even, is how critical these carbon materials are, especially for the technologies that are actually pushing us towards a greener future. It's an industry seeing this huge surge in demand across so many sectors, touching things you might not even realize. So our mission today is to cut through all that complexity, give you a clear picture of what's really shaping this crucial market for carbon as a material. We'll pull out the key insights, maybe uncover some genuinely interesting facts too. Think of it as your express lane to understanding this fundamental but often overlooked part of our economy. So we'll look at what's fueling the growth, explore let's say, the hurdles it faces, and then definitely get into the exciting innovations and trends that could redefine its future. Okay, let's dive in. What's the sort of hidden engine driving all this demand for carbon materials?
Well, it's actually quite striking just how foundational carbon is across, an incredible range of industries. A primary driver is definitely its role in industrial applications. I mean, carbon in its various forms is absolutely central. Think steel production, electronics, the complex bits in automotive manufacturing, energy generation, even high-performance aerospace materials. And as global construction and infrastructure keep expanding, materials like graphite, the stuff in pencils, but also key industrially, and carbon black that gives tires their strength and color, and activated carbon, for filtration, they're becoming more and more vital. That directly boosts market growth.
Right, so it's not just the obvious big stuff, but down to the components level too.
Exactly. And beyond heavy industry, there's a huge push from energy and transportation. Think about the global shift towards green tech, graphite again, and carbon nanotubes. These are like tiny rolled up sheets of graphene, incredibly strong, light, conductive. They're absolutely essential in modern energy stores. We're talking lithium-ion batteries, right? Powering everything from phones to EVs, but also supercapacitors, fuel cells.
Ah, okay. So the high purity carbon is the anode in those batteries, the part doing the work of storing and releasing energy. Makes sense given the sheer number of batteries needed just for EVs.
Precisely. As the world really speeds up the shift to renewables and electric vehicles,
Yeah.
the need for high purity carbon, specifically as that anode material, is just becoming more and more critical. And, if you connect that to the bigger environmental picture, these environmental applications are also a big driver.
Hmm.
Activated carbon, for instance. It's prized for its amazing ability to absorb pollutants. You find it in water treatment plants, purifying water, cleaning air and filtration systems, even scrubbing industrial gases. So with this increasing global focus on sustainability, clean tech, demand for carbon in these purification roles is, well, it's growing fast.
That's a really interesting look at the demand side. But of course, any market expanding this quickly must hit some bumps in the road, right? Some friction.
Yeah.
What are the sort of major hurdles that producers of these carbon materials are facing right now?
Yeah, that's a really crucial point, especially around sustainability within the production process itself. A big challenge is definitely the environmental concerns around actually making these carbon materials. Some processes, particularly those relying on fossil fuels like petroleum coke, can be quite polluting. So as regulations get tighter pretty much everywhere, producers are feeling the pressure. They're having to invest, often substantially, in cleaner, greener ways to produce this stuff.
Huh. So they're basically under pressure to clean up the process of making something we need for clean tech. That's quite a dilemma.
It absolutely is. And another major hurdle is raw material volatility. Producing these materials relies on inputs like petroleum coke, that's a byproduct of oil refining, and natural graphite, which has to be mined. Both of these, well, they're prone to pretty significant price swings. And supply chain disruptions, too, which, as you can imagine, really impacts profitability, production, planning, the whole lot.
Okay, so if those key inputs are so volatile, does that maybe accelerate the push towards some of the newer alternative carbon materials you might mention, maybe as a way to build more resilience?
It definitely plays a part, yeah.
Yeah.
And that leads nicely into the third challenge, growing competition from alternative materials. New technologies are definitely emerging. Things like silicon-based anodes, for instance. They could potentially offer greater energy storage in batteries, maybe charge faster than graphite ones. And we're also seeing advanced ceramic filtration systems starting to challenge activated carbon in certain applications. As different industries keep innovating, this competition, well, it could really reshape the carbon materials market down the line, maybe chipping away at carbon's traditional dominance in some areas.
So putting this all together, what does it mean for the future? It sounds like there are some pretty significant challenges, sure, but are there also exciting innovations coming through? Things that could redefine the market, maybe even solve some of these problems?
Oh, absolutely. The market isn't just, reacting passively. It's being fundamentally changed by innovation. One of the most exciting areas has to be advanced carbon materials. We're talking about really cutting-edge stuff like graphene, that single layer of carbon atoms, incredibly strong, superconductive, and those carbon nanotubes we touched on earlier. Their potential applications are just incredibly diverse. Everything from high-strength composites, think aerospace again, or lighter cars, to flexible electronics, screens you can roll up, and definitely next-generation energy storage. Stuff that could seriously boost battery performance. These aren't just small improvements. They're really redefining what you can do with carbon, opening up totally new possibilities.
Wow, that's incredible. So completely new functions and properties, things you couldn't get from traditional carbon.
Exactly. And another major trend is definitely sustainability, particularly exploring bio-based carbon. Companies are looking much more seriously now at eco-friendly alternatives, like biochar, that's made from biomass agricultural waste, wood chips, that sort of thing, through a process called pyrolysis, heating without oxygen. And biochar is finding uses in agriculture for improving soil, holding water and nutrients, even in sustainable packaging.
Yo.
This whole shift, it really helps align the industry with those big global goals around carbon neutrality.
So it's not just a material, but it could also lock away carbon and help farming. That's a pretty powerful double whammy.
It really is. And finally, thinking about the really big picture, climate solutions, carbon capture and utilization, CCU. That's starting to reshape how we view industrial emissions. These are technologies designed to capture key OERs right from industrial sources and then crucially convert it into something useful. Things like fuels, chemicals, even building materials. They're starting to move out of the lab and into commercial use. And that opens up some incredibly exciting possibilities for like a circular carbon economy. turning waste into a resource.
Okay, that brings us towards the end of our deep dive into this evolving global carbon materials market. It's clearly a sector really powered by innovation, but also facing these critical sustainability challenges head on. Definitely poised for some remarkable transformation. We've seen just how fundamental carbon is, right? From the steel in buildings to the batteries in cars, even cleaning our air and water. So as you go about your day, maybe just think about the pervasive role these carbon materials play, often invisible, but everywhere, and how their evolution, from basic raw material to advanced composites, from just filtering stuff to maybe converting cofiers, how that might signal broader shifts towards a more sustainable future. Where might you encounter these new forms of carbon next? Something to think about.